just because of revenue. But that fluctuates, and I don't understand exactly how that works because we have our budget and the rate is set for that.
Oh, good. Mhm. Oh, I think it's his health.
And so there is some there's a formula, and I don't understand the formula. So that's just off of revenue. And I don't know if you remember, we had a big tricks thing that it's in. So it's two parts. The revenue that you just get, the big chunk of money that you get, it is based off of your budget that you put in. We put in a budget. And so the assessor says, okay, they need this much for their budget. Okay, where's that going to land? They lock it in. All those houses have been built. Sure, that increases our budget. If we have a building and the house property goes way down,
I had a very late
then
lunch.
our budget will cover it. So then that rate has to go up to cover our budget, which takes more.
I know, right? Kevin's drinking the right thing. My day was Diet Dr. Pepper, so I'm on water now.
Anytime you as a body change the tax rate,
Water.
other than just that matrix,
So are you in a
has to change.
without it?
All the crazy.
And I don't understand how, but all these other people that do anything, they are going to get more money this year. Next year,
Yeah, like toilet paper. Yeah.
well, they could lose it. They could lose it.
Not one thing, it's
Because that's the thing
another.
that flows back and forth up and down. Where
Yeah, it's 6. According to my clock, it's 6 o'clock. Good to go. Ready?
holding it a little.
Ari, are we ready?
Yeah, it's very weird.
Graphs could go up and down, but
Oh, I thought I got off the hook last week.
The Zoom just.
also the assessor came in. Oh, the values of it.
I thought I got off the hook for being late last week.
So they're not on this.
Traded turns too.
Must have been my job to pay taxes.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm good.
$100,000, $200,000 valuation is higher, you know, so boom, their taxes, your taxes would go up, no matter what, even if we did 12%, even if we do it down, really.
It's been eventful.
It's not my event.
And he even mentioned the
Kevin.
word cake. I was like, hey, what?
Oh,
Sorry, technical. Oh,
It was ready. That's always the way, huh?
Mute. Oh. Oh, and then they have- You need to turn them on. Aren't working on Zoom, but the audio is. So, through
Okay.
YouTube. Like, we can get them on, but they're kind of glitchy.
All right, let's get started. I'll open this meeting of the Pleasant View City Council this August 10th, 2021. Welcome, everyone. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, opening prayer, reading, or expression of thought by Councilmember Bailey.
All rise. Pledge allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful tonight that we're able to gather together as a community, as friends and neighbors of Pleasant View City to participate in this public hearing, and pray a blessing to be with us tonight as we discuss the city and the financial matters therein. We're grateful, Heavenly Father, for those who lead us here, for our mayor, for those who dedicate so many hours of service. We're grateful for our police force, for those who serve us in that capacity, in our fire department, and the many hours of selfless service which they render. We're grateful for the citizens of this wonderful community, for their participation tonight and for their caring and loving nature in the community. We're so grateful to live here, for the blessings of life that we enjoy. We pray that thou would protect us and help us as a community, continue to approach thee in prayer for moisture, for added moisture as we're in a drought situation, and pray that thou would watch over and protect our community. We're so grateful for all we have and pray for these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Next item is the declaration of conflicts of interest. Based on the agenda, I'm going to assume nobody has a conflict, or all of us do, because we all pay property taxes. So first item of business, unless there's somebody that wants to declare it, I'll move on. First item, only item of business. This is required by state law that the only item on the agenda is this public hearing. So in case you're wondering why it's such a short agenda, that's why. So item 1 is a public hearing, discussion and possible action to consider increasing the property tax revenue and tax rate and adopt the final budget with the new tax revenue resolution 2021-G. So I'd entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bailey, second by Arrington. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're in a public hearing. We'll start. I'm going to make a few comments, then I'm going to turn it over to Amy. Couple of things I want to clarify. Hopefully, I had an interesting thing happen to me one day. I was in Amy's kind of shoes there and presented for 20 minutes on truth and taxation and how the tax system works and everything. And after I was done, people got up and were saying the exact things I covered. And I asked a friend of mine who was one of the ones that happened to get up and say it, why, that was covered. Why did you ask that? Well, I wasn't paying attention. I was going over in my own mind what I wanted to say when it was my turn to get up. So hopefully, and he said, I'm not a public speaker, so I'm not used to it. So I was really rehearsing in my mind what I wanted to say. And that's understandable. A lot of people everybody gets nervous when they have to speak in public. I get nervous, everybody gets nervous. So, but please try to pay attention, and there's a lot of good information here for you to digest. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind or trying to convince you not to get up and speak your mind, just that maybe you are going to learn something that you didn't already know. The second thing is what I consider one of the most important parts of this is a lot of the misunderstanding. And if you read my newsletter, I addressed this. A lot of the misunderstanding when the public gets that 16, 17, 20, whatever percent gets thrown out there by the newspaper or by the state is like, oh man, I'm already paying $2,000, $3,000 in property tax. I can't afford it. 16, 15, 10%. 10% is an extra $300. And that's not the way it works. Okay. If you're paying $3,000, it's an average for property tax. If you're paying $3,000, 9% of that is what the city's share is. So 270. So if you did a 10% increase on 270, your taxes would go up $27, or about $2, a little over $2 a month. So it's not on your tax bill, it's on the city's share of the tax bill, which is 9% right now. So that's just one important thing to keep in mind. The other thing I wanted to clear up, it was put out, and I know this wasn't done maliciously. Hopefully, I think it was done unintentionally and just some misinformation that was put out on a post that during a closed meeting where we kicked everybody out, we discussed all this budget stuff, and it was out there with a link. No, first off, we don't record closed meetings. Second, the closed meeting had finished, and the next item on the agenda was a budget workshop. That you're seeing out there was our budget workshop. It was not in a closed meeting. We don't do things like that in a closed meeting, and we certainly don't record closed meetings. There's a reason it's a closed meeting. So it was discussed some personnel things. So anyway, just to clarify that, like I said, I don't think that was done, just it was done in error, not maliciously. So social media can be great. All this here is what we've done since COVID. And we're like, hey, that was a great way to get people more informed. So we're going to start pushing things out like that. And we spent a little bit for some technology to help us push that out to everybody. And so hopefully if you can't come.
When it decides to work.
Yeah. Just like technology. When it works, it's great. When it doesn't, yeah. So with that being said, I'm going to turn the time over to our city administrator. Thank you for being here. She's actually off for a month. But thanks for putting this together.
Oh, I'm
Thanks for
happy to
coming
be
and
here.
presenting.
No
So,
problem at all. So I just wanted to go through with you all this evening about our property tax rate considerations and what the discussion's been. So as part of the budget process, we actually had some deliberations in discussing, and again, no final decision determinations been made. That's why you all are here. We want the public's input, but determining whether or not we want to pursue this. And if you don't post and notice, you don't have the option to even consider it. So that's why we're here, is for consideration. No determination has been made. So this is on the state's website actually, and it's a graphic on how the certified tax rate comes into play. So the city each year receives a certified tax rate, and as you can see, it's a very complex equation. If you see at the bottom that revenue divided by value equals the rate, that's ultimately what happens with all of this. We are able to capture some new growth, so new housing developments, new businesses that come in. We are able to capture that, but ultimately we get the same dollar value that we got the year prior, and then they adjust the rate and lower the rate or higher the rate based on what happens with inflation to get us to whatever that certified tax rate is. So with property taxes, there's two different ways that these are assessed. With primary property, this is more residential. It's taxed at a 55% value. For non-primary, so more commercial type, it's at 100% at that rate. So it's that rate that the certified tax rate, whatever is approved by the city, and then comes into play with either 55% of your market value that comes in from the county or 100%. And just a quick note on those values that come in from the county, those are disputable. You can go and actually tell the county you think it's too high and look to get that adjusted. That is an option. So this is a graphic of the city's property tax history. So as you can see, the last few years, the city's actually been making an effort to maintain the rate to capture inflation. And so that's a lot of why we're here today, because the city had said, hey, we want to look at, again, capturing inflation, but didn't understand how much housing prices had gone up in doing that. And so this shows just how we compare with other surrounding cities. And I will note on this slide that this really isn't an apples to apples comparison, because every community is a little bit different. And so some of the communities may have much lower property values, so they actually have a much higher property rate, and kind of vice versa, or they may just not have as high of taxes, but they may have lower service levels as well. It really can fluctuate. This is a breakdown, and you all probably recently got your assessments from the county, but of all of the different taxing entities that are impacted in our city. And so this kind of goes to the mayor's point that the city itself is not the entirety of what your property taxes are. And this is a little bit easier breakdown, a pie chart of what those values are. And so the city itself is about 8.68% of what you pay in your taxes. So if the city is considering an increase, that's on that piece of the pie. So 8.68% of your property tax bill. And so just to kind of jump in and clarify again, that certified tax rate, it adjusts every year based on same amount of revenue. And so again, it can account for new growth, but really the state's looking at getting us the same amount of revenue. They don't care about inflation. And so during the budget process, we looked at, possibly going down this road. And because of the increase in the housing prices in the market unexpectedly as high as it went, if we were to maintain that rate based on how those numbers go, it would be about a 17% increase in city revenues. That doesn't mean an increase in your property tax bill. That means in what the city's allowed to capture. And so just one thing to note, if the city doesn't ever adjust its certified tax rate, it can decrease our buying power. And so an officer is going to cost the same to fund for a full-time position regardless, but the actual dollar amount goes down with inflation. And this is just a little graphic to kind of display how that works. Over a few decades, obviously things get more expensive. Dollars don't go as far as they used to. So with that, the council and the mayor, after learning, whoa, this resulted in a 17% increase, wanted to look at some additional options as well. And again, we are so glad you are all here, because the whole intent is for this to be a public process and to have input. So thank you so much for taking the initiative, the time to come and to be with us this evening. And so I just ran a few other scenarios to look at this, and that are just not the 17% increase, but also a 10% increase option and a 5% increase option. And just to kind of show the differences there, I will say with the new growth our community's experienced, there has been some growth in the community. That already bumps us up. If no action's taken, if no change is made, that bumps us up 3% just with new growth. And so with that, a 5% increase actually isn't, it's that increase in the revenue. So it's not an increase in what you're being assessed. It's more like a 2% because again, that 3% already comes into play for that new growth. So this just breaks down the options a little bit more specifically, and this is the notice that went out. So I guess the first option is just no action. And again, that brings in that 3%, but there would be no city approved increase. There is a little asterisk and a caveat here, because let's say your property value went up, but your neighbors went down. Well, then you may be paying a little bit more and they might be paying a little bit less. We can't control or dictate how that works. But for the most part, the city will capture the same value they have in the past in addition to the new growth. So the second option is that maintaining the rate. And so that would capture an additional $169,104 for the city. And this is just if your, residence is valued at 489 or your business, how much more of an increase you'd be paying. And so your total amount of the city's portion would be about 300, 289.39. And then the increased amount for the annual increase would be about $41.42. And for a commercial valued property, it would be about $75.30. Again, that could fluctuate based on how those valuations come into play. So the third option, this 10% option, is another one just again to consider for inflationary reasons. And so with this one, if the council were to decide on a 10% increase, it would bring the city $92,000 and oh my goodness, and $800 in revenue, and then a $19 annual increase for a resident valued at that, and then a $35 increase for a business. And so if a 5% increase were to come into play, it would bring in an additional $43,481 to the city and an anticipated $5.11 annual increase or $9.29 annual increase. And again, that fluctuation could occur based on how the assessed rates come into play. And one really important thing to note here is if this is approved, if an increase is approved, that's the new baseline for the future. And so if the council determines to make an increase in the amount, then in the future, that's the amount they'll work from to calculate the certified tax rate from the state. So it is a long-term increase. It's not just an annual thing. So just as an outline of what the increase in funds would be used for, and this is something that was discussed as part of our budget process. The main thing with doing this, we don't have a big project that we're trying to accomplish with what we're doing with this funding, but it's really fiscal longevity and really looking at, okay, how do we stabilize our budget? Because if we don't do any increases, kind of back to that infographic on the grocery carts, over time, that really kind of wears on what you're able to do and with your services and function as a city. We did this year add a new police officer for safety reasons, and then some administrative staff part-time positions to help enhance our levels of service. So again, it kind of helps to supplement those things. We have outstanding capital and equipment needs. I think everybody does. I think that's, a real need, but taking care of our city and making sure to make those improvements, and then just general improvements and growth, and also maintaining our rainy day funds for projects that may come that are unexpected. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions of the council and the mayor at this time. That's really kind of an overview. I can go into any more detail if you have any questions. I know that's a lot of information in a very short amount of time.
You have that slide. I think it was the third one. That's the comparison by community.
Ew.
Bring that back up. Weber County cities.
So close.
That
There we
one.
go.
Yeah, I just like to point out so that everybody understands. This is just the city's side. It's really skewed because it shows us right in the middle, and that's true for a city. But however, some cities have like Hooper, Far West, Uena. They have Weber Fire District. Pleasant View, North Ogden, and Harrisville has Northview Fire District. We have our own police department, but Plain City, Hooper, West Haven, far west, Uena, they have the sheriff's office, so they're also paying the sheriff's office out of their general fund for sheriff's service too. So it's really hard to compare exactly here. This is just illustrative purposes, but so keep that in mind. It's Ogden City, they look pretty high there. South Ogden look pretty high. They have their own fire department, their own police department. So, and they have some, at least Ogden has some homes that are lower priced. So like Amy covered that needs, the revenue. They're a big city and busy city. But so just so everybody knows, we're not trying to whitewash anything here. There's other things that go into play for our overall budget, like law enforcement, fires, not part of our budget. It's part of the Northview Fire District, as well as the North Ogden and Harrisville. So it's kind of hard to compare apples to apples on that chart there. All right, questions?
Can I just ask for a clarification?
Yeah.
So would you mind just explaining too, just with everyone here, how the tentative budget process works, how we needed to come up with a number before we, like in May, before we even knew what this county was going to do or the state was going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way, if you do want to consider with your tentative budget and your budget process, a possible increase again to maintain the rate of inflation or for a project or whatnot, you have to do that in advance. And we do that before we even get a certified tax rate number. So the timing is really wonky. So we go out there and say, hey, we're interested in considering this before we even know what our rate will come in at. And we have to guesstimate. And that's where we just said, well, we'll look at what maintaining the rate does. And then lo and behold, oh, wow, that's a 17% increase. We did not anticipate that.
Hence the word tentative, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so there's a tentative budget that's approved, but tonight this finalizes and kind of puts in concrete what the city's budget will be for the following fiscal year.
Yeah, many years ago, this truth in taxation has been around a long time, and it's a good thing. It alerts the public, it's not easy to raise taxes. Our goal was to keep the tax rate the same, which is in effect a tax increase. All the cities, I shouldn't say all, that throws a blanket over it, but most of the cities in Utah have reached out to the legislature and said, we need the legislature to do something to help us tackle inflation. Because we get the same revenue if we don't do a truth in taxation hearing. In other words, as property values goes up, tax rate goes down so that we get the same amount of revenue constantly. Sounds good in theory, right? It sounds good in theory, but that's like an average over the entire city. So if your property tax went up a lot, even though we lowered the tax rate a little bit, you're still going to pay more. So it's kind of misleading in as much as the figure 489,000 is provided to us by the county. That's the average home. I don't know what the average home in Pleasant View is. Apparently it's 489,000. There's homes greater than that, and there's homes less than that. That's why it's an average. The tax rate comes from the state. We got it the day that we held our public hearing is when that first sheet she showed with all the formulas and everything was made public. That's usually the second week of June is when the state says, okay, here's what we calculated. The county works with the state to come up with that. It's a very complex system. So there's a lot of moving parts. We would hope that, especially if any of you know any legislators, or even if you don't, feel free to reach out to them and say, hey, you've got to do something to help the cities and the districts with inflation. Because like she said, we give raises. It costs more for asphalt, it costs more for cement, it costs more for pipe, it costs more for things we have to buy. Insurance, everything we do is subject to inflation, just like you in your life. So there's got to be some kind of mechanism moving forward, we hope. Kind of falling on deaf ears before. They're like, well, you can hold the truth in taxation hearing. Okay, so you'll notice a lot of communities have done that. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Any more questions before we open it to the public? All right, this time is yours. We're going to limit time to 3 minutes. That's what we usually do for public comment. Laurie, I don't know, if she will stand up when the 3 minutes is up. So kind of keep glance out of the corner of your eye. I'm not really a stickler, but if you go, if you go 3.5, 4 minutes, I'm not going to panic. If you start 5 and 6 minutes, okay, I'm going to ask you to yield the mic to the next person. So, all righty. Time is yours. Please come to the microphone. Please state your name and where you live.
Hey, Scott, Pleasant View, 544 West, been here for 25 years. I am entirely against this tax rate. I think 3% is plenty. I am on a fixed income and have been for 10 years. When I run short of money, I cannot ask Social Security, give me additional money. I have to adjust my budget. I'm asking you to adjust your budget and not ask for an increase. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nope, I'm Derek Draper. I live on 400 West. Just a couple things here. I've noticed that the minutes on your website haven't been updated since the beginning of June. You know, I don't know how we're supposed to stay informed if we can't read what's going on.
Okay, let me cut you off right here, Derek.
Go ahead.
By law, we're required to have a meeting, public hearing to discuss truth and taxation.
Correct.
So let's stick to the
Truth and
public hearing on
taxation?
truth and taxation, please.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm sorry, I didn't make the law.
Okay, so then let's just go right here. In your article, I think you did a good explanation. Well, here, hold on real quick. Since you brought up I posted the article you brought up. Okay,
Okay.
make it perfectly clear to everyone. And you said it was a budget workshop. And I pulled up the itinerary, whatever you want to call it, the agenda, and it says budget workshop. It says closed meeting, discussion, budget workshop. It doesn't say open meeting again or public's involved in any way, shape, or form. So I think that's kind of weird. And then how many other budget workshops have you posted online? All right, so just to clarify how I came to the conclusion of what I said. I read your newsletter. I think that explains it very well. And this would have clarified a lot of things for me if this would have been happened initially. Just to read what you said, unfortunately, we received the information the same day as the paper received the information. In fact, as I was out of town for the holiday weekend, the first that I personally saw the information was in the newspaper. My question, if you first saw the information in the newspaper, how did your quote get in the paper, which said, we haven't heard anything from the public yet, and we don't even know if we will? It makes it sound like you're trying to cover up something for some reason, because I don't understand how you can have your statement in the article you say you read without knowing about it. Okay, secondly, on truth and taxation. In 8/11 of 2020, I got the minutes since they were posted, and it's truth and taxation hearing last year. It says, in order to do it, we have to advertise for a tax increase. This is what you said last year, because it was being raised, increased slightly. Okay, I have no problems with what you did, because in this, you explain yourself, have no issues. Okay, then I even see a thing you sent out last year explaining everything, which did not happen this year, which we probably would have avoided a lot of things. So my question is, why did all this effort go into last year's and zero go into this year's, even after things were posted online and you commented to them, so you knew people were upset about it? And it wouldn't have been hard to give an explanation like such as this to clarify some things. That would have been very easy, and it would have quelled a lot of talking, I think. Okay, my other thing on taxation.
About a minute left.
Okay, I'll go really fast. Impact fees. Pleasant View basically only issues impact fees for water, sewer, and fire department. My question is, why are we not charging impact fees for everything that impacts the city? I understand the impact fees cannot be used
Okay,
for.
once again,
for
we
personnel.
need to talk about property tax increase here. Sorry, got to
Okay.
keep you on task, but
Did you have an open forum at the beginning of this or no?
no, we're required by
Just
law
on it.
that the only thing that can be on the agenda is the truth and taxation.
Okay, so in taxation, does that cover wages for employees? Because you've been mentioning you're hiring police officers and things like that, right?
Yep.
When's the last time the city has done a compensation study for all city employees? I know the police department gets paid very well. I'm just wondering about all your staff. Thank you.
I will take a moment to address timing. I received a call from the Standard the night before the article was published. And my quote to him was, he wanted to know if we'd had opposition. Right? And I'm like, no, we haven't had any opposition because nobody knows about it yet. It's not been made public. The first time the public heard about it was also the next day. He did not tell me what his article was going to be about. He didn't tell me he had the figures. He didn't. So the quote was, is there going to be opposition to a tax increase? My answer was, I have no idea because we haven't put it out there yet. Okay, which is a logical assumption. Not anyway. So it's just misrepresent. I mean, in fairness to Tim Vandernack at the Standard, I think it was a good article. If people want to take everything out of context, that's fine. I ain't gonna worry about it too much. He generally does a pretty good job, and it's unfortunate that some of the stuff. The other thing, you held up a truth and taxation notice from last year. That same notice this year was published twice in the Standard Examiner. So it's required by law. So last week, if you go back to last Tuesday's Standard, you'll find that notice for this year's tax increase. And then the county publishes the first one with all the other, and I'm not sure of the date they published it, but we can certainly find it. All right, next. Anybody else?
Council, Phil Nelson, Pleasant View resident. So first of all, Amy, great presentation. That was great. And so that was wonderful. And I just want to point out, these meetings are uncomfortable by design. When they wrote the 1985 Truth and Taxation Law, it was designed that the city has to come to the constituents and say, look, we want to raise taxes and have this hearing and have this tension. It's by design, it's a good thing. But I do want to point out the city council and the mayor, you're doing a great job. You're volunteering for this. This isn't for fame and fortune. So good for you. I look forward to getting to know you a little bit better. Couple things though about the only issue I have is since 2018 in the 2019 budget, Pleasant View City started locking or freezing the tax rate. And I know, ostensibly that sounds like a good thing. We're going to save, we're not going to increase the rate. But the way the truth and taxation law is designed, like you pointed out, is it's supposed to be freely floating. So when property values go up, tax rates decrease. By locking it, we've seen unprecedented last 3 years property value increases, which means we've seen unprecedented property tax increases because we've locked the rate. And as Amy pointed out, that becomes the new baseline every year. So we saw 15% property value increase last year. We've seen 24% increase this year. It's not going to let up next year, right? We still got a shortage. So we're going to continue to see this baseline increase at a rate that it never otherwise would. Now, the city's in an awkward position where it does need to bring in revenue because we've also got inflation. 3%. I mean, when they designed the 85 law, the truth and taxation law, the goal was to have new growth keep pace with inflation. So 3% generally does keep pace with inflation. Now we're seeing different inflation rates this year. But as the gentleman who stood up first pointed out, Social Security is only going to increase 1.3% for inflation this year. So people that are on a fixed budget are having to encounter a 5.5% currency devaluation. Their inflation is pushing down the value of their currency 5.5%. On top of that, they are encountering 12 to 15% increases in their property taxes. Northview Fire's got another 15.5% increase. And that's just not long-term sustainable. 10 years from now, I'm going to be paying $6,000 more a year to live in my home if we continue at this pace. So it's just not a sustainable system. So the city, I just encourage the city to work on what is a sustainable way to keep pace with inflation. We're going to run out of places to build on the mountain. That's going to happen. We don't have, perpetual new growth opportunities. So it's got to be sales tax. It's got to be other opportunities. So I just mainly want to point out, I appreciate what the city's doing, but would strongly encourage you not to lock that rate anymore, because it undermines what the purpose of that truth in taxation law was, which was to adjust freely floating. So, thanks.
Yeah, that's the problem that I addressed at first, is there is no mechanism. They feel like the mechanism that they passed 30, 40 years ago. I don't know what year it was. It's been a while. So that they passed, that new growth would take care of everything. But the problem is new growth brings new problems. New police officer. Now that's new, and it's not just new growth. It's the problem why we're hiring another police officer. New mindset in the country that has bled over into the community. Every bad guy everywhere in this country nowadays wants to fight the police. They know their rights, and I'm sure Derek could tell us how bad it was before the new norm, I guess, let's call it. Derek used to be police officer in Long City, and chief and other officers. It's getting to be ridiculous what's going on out there, and it bleeds into Pleasant View. Not the good citizens of Pleasant View, the people that are coming into our community they come up in carloads in the middle of the night, to not just Pleasant View, all over, to cause problems, to steal, to feed their habits. It's this new norm of what they want to do is quite a problem. Anyways, that was never calculated into new growth. So again, we still want the legislature, we're still trying to get the legislature to come up with a method to capture a small amount of inflation as part of the original formula. I agree. And like I started out, these hearings are good. They are uncomfortable for us to listen, and we don't take it personal. We all live in Pleasant. We're all affected by this also. So it's not like we get a free ride or a discount on our taxes for sitting here. Anyway, next.
While somebody's getting up the nerve to come up, let me just mention one thing. Our police force, we do have our own police force. Everyone knows that, right? And that's been mentioned a couple of times today. I think it's important that as citizens, we realize that because of the size of our city, the size of our police force, we at many times have had a single officer on duty at a time. That just doesn't cut it anymore. I mean, because of what's just been mentioned, you don't send a single officer to a call very often anymore. You got to have two. That's a big issue, and it's driven us to have two people at a time on duty. So it's officer safety, really, honestly. Toby?
And before Toby speaks, I don't want to dump this all on the police department.
No.
I remember. I know you did. And I said the same stuff. I remember it mentioned before, I don't know, that it's not the police fault that this is happening.
No.
But and you're absolutely right. It's just,
But when we talk about
but it's a necessity, and
living
that's
within our budget, we have to realize that there are some needs that we have to address. Then they're tough. So, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Toby Molesky, 3325 North, 1000 West. Here in the room, I understand some type of increase is necessary to cover the costs of the services that all of us do enjoy. But I think we're going to see in the future, as one of the gentlemen mentioned, that the growth up on the hill is going to stop at some point. At least in some of the areas in the city, we might want to start considering higher density to take advantage of the sales tax component based on population. Otherwise, I think we're going to be having to see a large property tax increase into the future to sustain the services that we all enjoy. Keep it low. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we'll close the public hearing.
Let's give them a little longer, Mayor. I think they need to get up the guts to come up.
Okay. Well,
Is that me that's going to get longer? Is that what you said? That was not what you said, I take it.
No.
Thank you. My name's Hayward Ride. I live on 3975 or 3927 North, 575 West. And I appreciate the graphics and so much that have been shown. And, you know, when we think about a hike of 17% or so, that sounds like a lot. And it is a lot. And a number of years ago, I had an experience that I'd like each of you to think about as you finalize what you're going to do here. A number of years ago, probably, in fact, more than 50 years ago, as a young man, I had the opportunity of being a junior staff member on a U.S. House of Representatives Budget Committee. And one of the interesting things that happened to us is the congressman that I worked for, he seemed to be dumb. He was the son of a sharecropper from Louisiana. But as we would call in witnesses into the meetings, the witnesses were typically PhDs from Harvard and other Ivy League schools. And one of the interesting things that he always asked, and I want to ask you this same question, and I've thought about it for years. How many of you, and he would say it this way, Dr. Brown, speaking to the professor, Dr. Brown, have you ever met a payroll? And I think that's a very important question for a city official, a councilman, a mayor, or any employee to ask themselves, have I ever met a payroll? And I can tell you from personal experience that it makes a big, big difference in how you think. I've been a public official. I've worked for the government. I've been in private practice. I know both sides. And it's a lot tougher when you answer the question, have you met a payroll? And so what I'd ask you to do is to go through and not think so much about the wants, which apparently you are thinking about, but think about really what is needed. And ask yourself, if I had to pay this myself personally, would I do it? And I think that's one of the problems we have in being public officials is it's hard to relate our own personal circumstances to the circumstances of the public in general. So ask your question. I think that you could come back very, very easily to one of the graphics that was shown, and that 17% or thereabouts, very, very likely is not appropriate. Very, very likely it is way out of line. And if you look at your own personal property taxes, city as part of it, and look for the years, I would bet that nearly everyone in this room has seen their property tax double for the last several years. And I would ask myself, do I want that to continue? And I think that you probably have the opportunity to stop it, and stop it now by reconsidering some of the things that really are wants, but really might not be necessities. So I appreciate you, each of you, and the services you render. I know it's a difficult job, but do it. And the easy way, I think, is to go back and really look really hard at everything that you're proposing. Is it really necessary? Is it, when you get right down to it? And I would doubt, even without seeing it, that there are many things in there that could be adjusted. And unfortunately, we don't have as citizens all the information and everything that goes in, payroll and so forth. But there's a lot of things that really could be adjusted, in my opinion. Thank you.
You hear?
My name is Jim Bench. I've been here almost 18 years on 750 West. First off, I just want to thank the mayor and the city council for the great job we're doing. And I do very much appreciate the police officers here in Pleasant View. I have a son behind me that's alive today, I believe, because of one of your officers. So I do appreciate the hard work and dedication and so important. That's something that's being destroyed. Police officers are being attacked, and I want you to know that we love the police officers here in Pleasant View. I really did, the very first gentleman that got up here spoke about, the difference in fixed income and price increases. And I plan on retiring here and staying here for a long time. I really like this area. It's been good for my family. Love it here. I shouldn't say now, but just, I think the other thing I was going to say is that I've been here 18 years and my property taxes have gone up probably 40%, and you probably all seen the same thing. And I don't want to see that going up, continuing either, because I'd like to retire here. I do understand that there are unique challenges, and I did read your letter, Mayor, and I appreciated that clarification that made a big difference in how coming here tonight felt. So I appreciate that. And I do know that things happen like that, misunderstandings and poor timing, very poor timing. So appreciate what you're doing. I just hope you consider our livelihoods of the future. And as was mentioned, the very first speaker, appreciate his comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Pittman, 1322 West, 3200 North. Like has been said, thank you for your service. I know it's a hard job to do. I'm not going to rehash everything that's been said. I just want to add my voice to look at the budget. Maybe if you don't do this tax increase, it'll put more pressure on you to do that. I know as you've been going through the budget, you've had this tax increase maybe in mind and thought, well, we'll go ahead and keep that because we might increase taxes. I don't know if you've done that, maybe consciously or unconsciously, but either way, if we don't do this tax increase, maybe we can put more focus on sales tax income, out of the box thinking, whatever it might be. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Catherine Graham, 4530 North, 900 West in Pleasant View here. I've been a resident here for 31 years now. I guess for clarification purposes, you're saying with the present proposed increase, we're going to have a 17% more revenue in the city. Is that what you're saying?
No.
What are you saying then?
No, I wish it was.
So where is this?
17% tax rents, just so everybody knows. Yeah, for instance, our police department budget, I don't know, you got it on about a 1.5, 1.6. We get about $890,000 in property tax. The rest comes from sales tax.
Yeah, 40% of the city's revenues come from property
Yeah.
tax.
So it would increase our revenue, our property tax revenue, which is like again, it doesn't even pay for half the police department.
But it's still increasing your property tax revenue by 17%.
Yes, it would.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I guess my main issue with that is that the property values are based on last year's prices of homes. They're not based on what's happening right now. What's
Correct.
happening right
January
now-
1st.
Yes. What's happening right now, and I'm a realtor, so I know, is that we're having insurmountable price increases. I mean, 25 is really being a little bit on the low side, 25% increase in property values. So if you do this increase, and this is another thing I'm confused by, is at one point you said if we do this, this sets a precedence for the next years to come. Is that saying that this rate is going to stay the same?
No, no, that's the baseline. In other words, if property taxes go up again and the assessor reappraises us and it went up 20% again next year. So as of January 1st of next year, when we do the budget next year, they will again lower our tax rate so that we get the same revenue. The only way it would.
So the county automatically lowers the tax rate, you're saying?
Correct.
So I guess the only thing that I'm looking at is that I am opposed to an increase like everybody else. We've all had to tighten our belts and try and, deal with what we've been given with COVID and everything else. We've just all been faced with new expenses and issues. And I think if the city also needs to just kind of tighten their belt and look at that, because you are going to get increases just because our values are going up so much. And even if that rate does change or adjust, you're still going to get more revenue.
No, and that's the part that's so hard is we do not get more revenue. That's why they lower the tax rate. That's why we wanted to keep the tax rate the same so we could capture some more of that revenue. Unfortunately, the home values went up a lot, and that which kind of skewed the whole thing. And that's why we're saying we need to look at some other options here to capture some, but not the mass amount that the home values have gone up.
So what you're saying is if we adjust the rate this year, it's not going to have any difference on next year. We're not setting a new precedence.
Correct. So let's just say your home.
Kind of. I think I understand what it's correct in some ways, but for the actual total amount, sorry to cut you off, Mary.
Yeah,
The total amount will go up. And so then the next year's rate would be adjusted based on the total amount that we adjusted to receive.
But if but her concern is property tax on her assessed value is going to go up, will it go up again next year? And the answer is no.
No, it doesn't automatically go up.
Because
the
they will
next year.
lower the tax rate so that we get the same exact amount from your house
So the amount is
overall.
The amount is going up right now. So you're going to get that same amount next year is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And they may adjust the rate so we get that same amount.
Yeah. So any new value that's happened after January 1st will be addressed next year. If your house went up this year, 20%, at least, I mean, possibly, yeah, which is a good problem to have. Like I said in my letter, if you're selling your house or if you're, if you're not paying taxes. And I agree 100% because ours all went up too.
Covering it, I understand.
And but the value for next year, anything that goes this year, they will adjust our tax rate down so that we get the same amount overall. Again, I can't guarantee that for each of your houses because it's all going up, down. Your house might go up 25%, but mine might only go up 20%. And so whatever they adjust the tax rate, I might see a little increase, but you might not see any increase or vice versa or whatever. So it's hard to guarantee you anything, but that value or that tax rate will be lowered to offset so that the city gets the same amount as we get this year, plus new growth.
Unless we have another meeting.
Yeah,
Unless we have another.
And Mayor, do you mind if I?
Sure, go ahead.
I think that's something that everybody's missing here too, is there is a little bit of a component of new growth that does raise our budget. And I think, our understanding, and this is not taking away from your time, so stop that, but my thought originally when we set this budget in May was we had a budget and we were working on our budget and we talked about inflation, talked about all these different things, and we talked about keeping it at the same rate. But the perfect storm happened where the values just skyrocketed, which that's growth. That's a little component that we would get, plus holding it in essence, raise the rate a little bit. So it is kind of the new growth. It is the way higher costs of the housing market, plus holding that, which we didn't know that in May when we were talking about this. And then when the mayor kind of got hit, and I got hit too. I mean, everybody I think on this council was like, wow, we were kind of anticipating 5%. That's kind of what we were looking at in capturing that inflation, 5%. Well, That'll help because we knew we were going to get a new officer. That's $100,000. Plus, we're going to get a little bit of bonus from growth. And we tried to fit that all into our budget. That's our thoughts here. But then when that perfect storm came, it was a surprise to us all. And you can say we tried to lie, we tried to do all these different things. No, it just happened. We all of us thought, oh my gosh,
So what
we
I,
are not going to raise that thing. I mean, we can't do that because of Social Security, because of these different things. And so but we don't know exactly, I don't even know right at this point what that's going to be, if anything. If we leave it the same, we talked about a 3% growth rate that we would get. So are those components that are all part of the stuff that we get. So,
getting from this is that you're feeling somewhat like we are.
oh, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I know you live here too.
My taxes go, I'm married to a school teacher. I work as a reading aide.
So anyway, sorry,
little
Laurie, you
bit
can start the
counts.
time again. I apologize.
I want to bring this up for your benefit there. So if you look at the 2020 rate, which we got $855,000. Okay, if we made no new adjustments, and just took the 3%, that's $25,650. So the new growth brought us 26,000, or excuse me, just under 26,000, 25,650.
And that's new houses, that's new things that are going in that just come into the city as part of our budget. But that doesn't include, and everybody says, and I hate this, Mayor, and I'm going to say this too, because this drives me nuts on Facebook and things like that. People want pickleball courts, they want a new gym, that they want all these different things that they spit out there, and they don't have any knowledge of what's going on. And they just say, oh, it'd be so nice to have this rec center. I grew up in Layton and they had this rec center, and I want to have this rec center. And
Where are we going to pay for
where are we going to pay for it? These roads are horrible. I want, where's that money coming from? And that's, as a city council, I put that back on the city. What are we supposed to do? Yeah, let's tighten our budget. Absolutely. Do you want to, and we had a very light winter this year with snowplow. Do you want to do what, do we tighten our budget on snowplow? How often do we snowplow? No.
But you should have revenue left over. from that.
Anyway,
we do, but it goes that way. And it's so frustrating. So Mayor, I apologize back.
that's
to you.
okay. We'll turn it back
We're
over to you.
frustrated as well.
Sure.
I mean, just, you're all citizens, we're all citizens. We just are trying to keep from the inflation hitting us in every way, shape, and form.
Understand.
Because it's hitting us from every angle. And you've got the gentleman here who's on Social Security. Many of us are going to be on Social Security soon. I may be on Social Security soon. And it's hard. It's hard to do that. And I don't think we have anything set up for senior citizens in our area to get a break on taxes. So we need to, get a little tighter with what we do. And I know about the rec center and all that and what people want, but that's for
Yeah,
another day.
yeah.
That's not for
It is.
today.
Sure.
Even basic services like, so, sorry. You go to the gas station, I fill up in my car, just a couple months ago, it was $40 less. And now I'm paying $75 to fill up my gas tank. It's no different for our police vehicles. It's no different for our public works vehicles. Asphalt is crazy expensive. And if you want your potholes and your roads fixed and you want curb and gutter, and we have several areas in the city that don't have curb and gutter, that get their road base in their driveways and they want the city to help out. I would encourage you all to ask for a copy of the budget. Seriously, go through it and please, you tell us what you're willing to do without or reduce, because I go through it and it's really hard. The basic minimal services, we haven't had new employees in the front office since when? And our city has tripled in size. And so we have employees that are doing 5-6 jobs a piece, working overtime. It's the same with Public Works. Our Public Works Director is his own secretary answering phone calls when he's supposed to be out with meetings and helping with all. It happens here too, where everybody's tightening, the same as it happens in my home too. And I completely understand your frustration. I don't want my taxes to go up, but I also want my services to stay and maintain and provide the best quality of life in Pleasant View. So
What we're saying is that it seems like there's a lot more money than even you anticipated that would go into this. Is that not correct?
A lot more than we anticipated.
Yes.
with the 17%, if it,
Yeah.
or 16%.
So
Yeah.
let's try and get control of that now.
Yeah, so what we have, Amy gave 5, 8, and no, 5, 10, and 16.89.
The options, there's a,
The option is really 0 to 16.89. Thank you, Toby. Anywhere between those. I mean, you don't have to take option blank, blank, blank. It can be 0, it can be 2%, 5%, 8%, 6%, whatever we feel is a good fit, all the way up to 16.89. Cannot be higher than 16.89. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Do it like Robert's rules. Anybody else? 3 times.
You know, what about if we ask Mayor, and again, I don't know if this is even appropriate, but I mean, what is the service? What do you want? Nobody wants it. But I don't know. I mean, what is there? We're having all these options here, and yeah, do we just do nothing? And then, you know, next year when it does crash, and our realtor says it's not going to, but this artificial bubble here is way too high. We can't keep this going. You know what? That's a whole nother subject. Come back and we'll talk about commercial. We welcome commercial.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You buy it and put it in. Put it in.
Oh, we didn't put them in.
We want commercial. Absolutely. We welcome it. We want it. Sales tax revenue is the. Do we do that? Do we do that as a city? Do we do that as a city?
Okay, John's turn. Oh, by the way, we reached out to car dealerships. They can't do it because they're too close to Riverdale. And they're governed by franchises that say you've got to be X amount away. So Brigham's the next closest. Anyway, go ahead, John.
Thompson Wallets, huh? John Hendrickson, where am I? 507 West, 3900 North. Pleasant View. I've been here about 7 years. I've enjoyed hearing the discussion. I'm city manager myself for about 36 years. So I understand the dilemma you're facing, and I've faced it many times myself. Fortunately, growth can help, but it has to be also the right kind of growth. And you can't go out and force a private business into your city. That's your dilemma. You can go out and try to recruit them, but you can't force them. Same thing with industrial. And the cost to provide, usually I've found in my studies over my 30 some odd years in this business, that residential revenues do not cover the cost of services provided. And you gave a good example about your police department. That's why it is important to try to get more commercial in, is because it costs you less to provide services to commercial than it does for the revenue you receive, dollar for dollar. Let's put it that way. And even less for industrial. So if you can develop the three-legged stool, you'll do well. Question I have, and frankly, you've answered a lot of questions here, and I see your dilemma, and I know you've grown, and probably your revenue will be a little bit better than you think it is going to be because of that inflation or that growth. How much do you have in reserve? You're allowed 18% by state law. How much do you have in reserve? Right, okay, well, it tells you how long
Gone
I've
up,
been out
yeah.
of city management. in
Sorry, Larry
Utah.
can grab that number for us.
That's nice. I'm glad it's 25 instead of 18.
And we've had instances where we've had to use our reserves, so it's very important to have that in place.
I understand.
Sorry, Larry, put you on.
The 16.89%. That's the budget, the tentative budget we're working from, that I have the number pretty fast. So our reserve would be 859,000. And that's a 19% carryover. If we adopted. If we adopt the highest amount.
Okay. So
That's the rainy day fund for everybody.
I
So
understand.
I know you do, but for everybody's
Okay.
benefit.
I understand. The question is a little bit of risk management here. How much risk are you willing to take? If you use some of that to cover some of the things that you're planning, especially if they're vehicles or other kinds of things that are one time or things that you only buy, one time in maybe 5 or 6 years or 7 years. I don't know what your schedule is here. Sometimes we look at the amount of use rather than the amount of years, like dump trucks and things like that. But there might be a little room where you can not increase the rate that much if you will use some of the surplus, if you feel comfortable in using that. If you don't, that's your decision, and you get to stand for reelection if we think that that's the wrong decision. But I understand that, and I'm just suggesting, I don't know how much or how close you've looked at that. But
Yeah.
that's the only additional thing I will bring up. Otherwise, other people brought up things that I think are worthwhile considering.
Thank you. A couple of comments, John. First, we did look at it. I believe without any increase, it was like 13 point something. We had a discussion of what would be a good, I mean, we want to set a goal for each budget year. And we talked about 15 to 18%. Now, she said is 800 and something $1,000. That's not a ton of money. Okay. It's not like we got a $20 million budget, so 25% of it to have on budget. So we said our goal should be 15 to 18%. Again, these figures were talked about before we had the figures. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We're thinking 13 is too low. 25 is too high. We can have 25, but I think that would be nice, but if that would be if everything else was just falling into place. So we said, let's look at 15 to 18%. So that's the first comment. The second comment is something that, I was glad to see Steve go, the city, and he did this, sometimes, and you said your growth, you're this, that it's like, it's yours too. It's all of ours. It's everybody's here. This is the city. We've just been elected to represent. And so everybody has to remember it's our city that's growing. It's our city that's having these problems. It's our city, and we're all in this together. Yeah, we're all in this together. But anyway, 15 to 18% was the goal we
I
are shooting
understand
for.
where
So.
the bulk of the increase over what the growth is planned for another officer.
Yeah.
Mainly. And it looked like some other things in there too. I didn't
Yeah.
quite get them all. My eyesight.
That's
isn't
the
what it is.
biggest thing, really.
What's that?
That's the biggest thing. It's expensive, a new full-time.
And how many officers do you have per thousand at this point? Or how many, what's the
Yeah, it's
population?
one. This will
for-
put us to 11. We have 11,000, so 1 per 1,000.
1 per 1,000? Okay. And what's the crime rate?
Which type of crime?
Yeah, opportunity crimes, things like that? Is it property crimes? Is that the biggest problem you're having?
I'll defer to the chief. It comes in waves. A lot of times it's vehicle burglaries and vehicle
1
thefts.
per
and-
1,000 is not excessive.
No,
in
no,
your
it's not.
officer Rate at all. I remember when you were 1 per, I think it was 1,200 or 1,300 or something like that. I thought that was getting a little high.
Yeah.
You don't have enough officers per 1,000. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
You guys are welcome back every council meeting, by the way. Good to
My
see
name
you
is-
people.
My name is George Gover. I live at 3190 North, 1100 West.
George, I didn't catch your last name. I'm sorry.
Last name is Gover, like government. I came here today to really protest the tax increase, but then after being here, I realized something. One is, we do need more police. We know we need 2 or even more than just the one. One of the biggest problems we have here is right up the hill here. We have a major high school that provides no income to the city. We have how many students? 6,000 students? Something like that. So increases our population of Pleasant View by that amount. 2,000.
500. Yeah.
Really stretches our police force because we have these additional students, and they also we have no commercial district, so there's no income coming from that major employer of the city. The other one is, and I'm totally ignorant of this, is I don't know what this tax structure is, but also in this city, we're in a funny time in that we have developed property and a lot of undeveloped property. And that undeveloped property is not producing the tax income that we need to sustain the growth of the developed property. So I'm assuming that's probably a state legislative issue because about the tax rate on undeveloped property and such. So, correct?
It's the county assessor that values the property.
County assessor.
County assessor, yeah.
The county.
But he does it according to state law, so you're right.
Comes out of state
Yeah,
law, so it
right.
really puts a difficult time. So
The city has, that's the thing, the city has absolutely zero say.
anyway, so I come to say that I think we're going to go through a difficult time for a while here. And I know that with the inflation of the houses of developed property, it's not going to go down. It's going to stay up. The economists say there's not a bubble. It's just going to level off. And but it's going to take a while for the infrastructure of the city to catch up with that. Meantime, we have all this undeveloped property sitting there that's not generating the revenue it needs to help sustain this city. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment on industrial sales tax, actual, that type of property. A lot of people think we stop at 89. But we go clear down into Rule and White Boulevard. And I don't know if you've seen that. Parkland. But we and the mayor did a great job securing funding to punch Rule and White all the way through behind Brill. That's going to be an industrial area that we're working very hard, and we have been working very hard. We have been working on 2700 to make it commercial. We have Parkland Boulevard that is a huge commercial part of our city, and it's just going north. We have quite a bit of industry really in our city right now that people don't see. We don't want it up here. We don't want it where the high school. We don't want to make a used car dealership there at the high school. But we do have pockets that we want to develop, and we are actively developing those areas for sales tax revenue. All of us agree that sales tax revenue is the best source of income, and we do get a share of that. Our budget's 3.2 million, little over $3 million, and we get 900,000 in property tax. So that the rest of that is from other funding sources. So people need to understand. I get people say all the time, well, get more businesses in here. Yes, we'd love to buy business. The Trigon, they're trying to bring in restaurants. They're trying to do all those different things. We're working with them. We're zoning. Sarah's doing a great job working with zoning to help have some mixed use places and different things like that. We are trying. We do want it, but I can't do it. I'm just a humble servant, But we do want that, but we do have it, and it is here and it is coming. Look at some of those areas where the trailer park is. I don't know if you noticed that. There's a new business going in there, and that's Pleasant View. Three new businesses. That's Pleasant View. A lot of people think that that's Far West or somewhere else, but that is Pleasant View. So look at that. The corner there by Big Boys Toys and stuff like that. They're things that we're trying to get to come. So that is absolutely on our plate, in our sights. We're trying to juggle it all. Anyway, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I wish that we were at liberty to say what's going on. We can't until there's an actual application on. Oh, we got so much exciting stuff going on, but
Hopefully next year, you all will be here excited.
hopefully within
about
a
the
month
new-
or two, we can announce it
Yes.
all. So, yeah.
Well, I think the best thing that we can do is spend money in Pleasant View, right? There are businesses here. Let's be spending our money there instead of going to the cities next door to us. They're already here. There's several of them.
Pull your mic down so we can hear you.
Another thing to note too, other businesses in like Riverdale and other cities within Weber County, the way that the tax structure works, we do get a percentage when not as big as Riverdale does, but when you shop in Riverdale, my understanding, the way that the state tax office explained it to me is a little bit like 70-30. So if the business is in Riverdale, they get the lion's share of the tax revenue. But the remaining 30% is distributed among population around the rest of the county. So Riverdale actually provides quite a bit of sales revenue to our city. And so do other areas within Weber County. So when they say shop local, yeah, go to Pleasant View first, like Dave said, but also stay within Weber County because a percentage of that does come back to the city. And the reason why Riverdale obviously would get more is because it's more impact on their city with infrastructure and things like that. But like the mayor said, and like Steve said, we have some exciting things coming up that we're not necessarily at liberty to say yet. But we are working hard on commercial. We have been working with the state, with the county, with advertising these properties that we don't own, but helping these property owners, entice people to come here, showing, we have studies. Yeah, Steve really likes our studies. We have studies that we do here to show communities and businesses around us that here, you want to come to Pleasant View. We can show you our population. We can show you our traffic counts. We can show you our demographics. We can show you all these things. Please come to Pleasant View. But we don't have money to buy property. And so the property owner, it's really up to them to negotiate with the developers and the people who are coming in, but we can play a part in that, which we do. Mayor's constantly in meetings with our, development teams in the city, and he does a great job working with our engineer, with our planner, with our city administrator, with businesses. He has meetings all the time with people who are coming in interested in relocating to our city. And we definitely work hard. He works hard to do our part.
Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely.
I put out a newsletter last fall or last winter that basically said, COVID, we're all just kind of frozen in place. Nobody's building, nobody's ready to really move on, but that's going to change, and it has changed. And this summer, we've had a lot of people reach out. What I said in the newsletter is we're going to work as a council and as an administration to be ready. We made contacts with EDC Utah. They formed a new Northern Utah branch. Weber County has an economic developer that we brought them all out here. They asked us, hey, this is great. Can you do a inventory of all of your properties that are available, what sizes they are, who owns it? If you can ask what they want for it, which a lot of them didn't want to tell us, but that's okay. That's their right. They're the property owners. They can negotiate directly with the prospective client, give them an inventory of what we have available in the city. We had that. We had it all put together. Like Sarah mentioned, we have all the demographic. Biggest stumbling block, and is on 2700, and it's not their fault because they're trying to maintain a good corridor, but it is getting the accesses from UDOT that we need. And again, it's not, like I said, it's not their fault. It's a reality of the nature of the road, but we're trying to be creative on that too. So we got a lot of neat things in the works, but that's not what we're here for. That will help with the tax problem, which is what we're here for, but that's we want to hear from you. So anybody else? Anybody else?
Come on, if you want to stand up, go ahead. Stand up. Now's your time to speak. It's not scary. The chief we've got him calm down here. He's all right.
Silver Fox is over there just hanging
The
out.
Jim's a little.
We have to wake him up a little bit, but that's okay.
Anybody else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we go out of the public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Marriott, second by Yuri. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, council, what's your pleasure?
So I'd like to start with a question on, so if we, kind of have this goal of keeping our rainy day reserve in the 15%, we can't go higher than 25, but to keep it in that 15% range, what would it require? What would the percentage need to be?
Be 15%?
Or 19 with this.
Because
large
15 would
increase.
be on the low side, right? If we're
15 to
saying-
18 is what our goal was. So.
And
as a
25 is our
minimum, what You're
max.
talking.
I will bring up an interesting thing. I don't know if you guys remember, but we had a water main break on 500 West a few years ago. that wiped out that general fund by the tune of $500,000. When it made the whole road sink and whatever else. So if you don't have an adequate general fund, those type of things that, you know, literally rainy day, the road sunk in, we had a water main break, we can't control the cost of what it takes to fix it, and it was $500,000.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that amount doesn't go very far. And yeah, so 15 to 18%. So what if we 15, 16%?
I have the numbers. So with that 875, no. The 857,000, that would put you at a 16.61. That's no adjustment. The next one up is the 875,000. That puts you at 16.95%.
So the 5% would put us at 16.95.
5% increase.
Wow.
24,000 puts you at 17.88%.
Still under the 18, but yeah.
And then the 1 million would have been 19.29.
What do we have in there right now? What's our balance?
The million in there, so.
No, our balance,
800
our balance before the new budget.
Oh.
859,000 with the one, that with the $1 million.
So that's as of June 30th, what was our, no, if,
What was it,
5%.
June 30th before any increase?
5% would give you $733,000. Compared to 1 million at 859,000. That's the difference between the 5 and the 16.
well, Mayor, I don't,
So somewhere between 5 and 10 gives us the percentage goal that we've established.
16 to 18, yep.
Sorry, Steve. go
no,
ahead.
it's fine. I apologize.
I'm done. Yeah.
You know, in hearing the people, and I appreciate all the words of wisdom here, you know, I think we have to be very careful. I do not want to spend or base any of this on our rainy day fund. That's, we can't spend that.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just, in my mind, that's a given. That's there, and we don't rob that to buy ourselves a new car. You know, we just, that's there. But I think we have to look at, you know, maybe skinning it up a little bit. We are getting 3%. And I think, you know, as we talked in our workshop, we do have a good budget already with the things, and we can absorb the police officer in our original budget that we had without an increase. But I do think we need to have something for going forward. So I don't think doing nothing is not the answer, but we agree, as I said before, the 17, 18, whatever is not the answer as well.
Right.
And so I think, you know, more of the 5%, I think that's something that the residents can do. It is, and I really think, you know, we don't have anything, as Amy mentioned at the very beginning, we don't have any big projects that we're really trying to accomplish. We've got a lot of those things done, and we shouldn't bring that up in a COVID in a tried time. We can live within our means to a certain extent, and I think that's an important thing, to not start a new project. You know, we put Skyline on kind of on the back burner because of that, because of money. And, you know, that's a huge thing. We're going to have some of that outlay. I think we still need to work on it, but push that off a little bit. I'm afraid that next year, if we do have a crash, that we're going to be right back in the same boat, and we will have to redo it again. If by keeping the tax rate the same, we kind of hedge that inflation just a tad, and we don't have to fight it. But I don't think the residents want to stomach that at this point. And I don't think we should have them stomach it, because we've just gone through a horrible time, and inflation is hitting them as well. Not only us, but we're paying, as Sarah said, we're paying more for gas. I hate filling up the gas. It's $100 bill every time I fill up the gas tank. And so I think my idea is probably that 5%. I think that's a good place to be. It gives us a little bit of cushion. We can have our police department, we can have the things that we need, but not we don't need anything extra in the budget, which I don't think that we have. I don't think we have any special projects. We have nothing going on out above and beyond normal day-to-day operations. That's my comment, Mayor.
Amy, can you flip the pages so that we can see what that 5% would equal
I am
for?
happy to. Let's see. So it's for residents valued at the 489, it's $11 annually, and for commercial it's
We're
$9.29,
talking a hamburger a year.
depending on where you get your hamburgers.
Well, we're,
Is that on top of the 3 or is that including the 3?
it'll be
It's
on
on top.
top.
Well,
of
the three is new growth, so
Yeah,
the residents won't see an increase with that. Yep.
that's just.
And so really, it's kind of
It'd
more of
mean
a
511
2%
to 'em.
increase but it's a 5% total in revenue received.
That's about half of a police officer. It's, I mean, when you put it in terms like that, that's what I have to think about. What does that 43,000 represent?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a ton, yet it's $5 for every resident or an average. Which is
Every
anyway,
household.
household.
Yeah, when you look at it in perspective of the increase in the materials that we use and all the services, 43,000 is not coming anywhere
Nothing.
close to
Yeah, it's
that growth. That being said, I think you could do that and still, I mean, it would still require us to kind of tighten our belt. We've done that in the budget. We've already done that. We know we needed additional help with the police and with some office staff, part-time. In my mind, I think that's reasonable to be at. It's not a big increase, but it's also saying, hey, we still need to do our job at making the budget tight and not spend for wants, but for what's needed.
Anybody else, or is anybody ready to make a motion, or where do we stand?
Just want to make one more point, and I think I like what you're saying, and I agree. I just think it's really important that we don't fall too far behind either. And I'm not suggesting we go higher, but I'm just saying, it would be so much harder to play major catch up, so not letting it get too far beyond us is, but I agree. I think that the 5% is just exactly what Dave and Steve have just expressed. We would tighten our belt, but it'd be just cover some of those inflationary costs and things that we're facing right now.
Yeah, which was always my goal, and what I put in my newsletter is it got skewed. It got skewed because of what's going on in the housing market. The gas is a little out of sight too. That comes and goes. That will come. But the last thing we want to do is go 5-6 years and say, oh, we're way behind the 8 ball now. We got to raise taxes 30%.
Huge increase,
like
right.
that. That's
Which has been done.
And that would
It's been
happen
done, right?
inevitably
Sure.
because, Like several people have said, it may be a bubble, but it's never going to go back to what it was.
Well, and that historically, for those of us that have been here a long time, that has happened. We've let it go. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we're so far
Right.
behind. We
So
have to
costs,
catch up.
yeah.
So there's a 30% or a 40%
Right.
increase. And that years ago, that was a
And like
painful process. So,
3 or some back there was 28% or something
yeah,
like
it
that.
was horrible.
So, all righty. Anybody willing to make a
I-
motion?
I'll be the bad guy.
If you don't want to do it, I'll do it, Kevin.
No, I'll make a motion that we approve a 5% tax increase as has been discussed.
Option number 4.
Can you spell it out?
Yeah, it's 4.97,
4.97%.
and it's the
increase.
certified tax rate of,
000.
Okay, wait a minute.
sorry.
Yeah, approve the
I'll
tax
make a
rate.
motion that we approve the certified tax rate at 0.000941, which equals a 4.97% increase in revenues to the city. For the amount of $875,638.
This is what she has to
And
enter
no
into the
pennies.
computer for the state.
Resolution
Sorry.
Resolution 2021-G.
With all those blanks, these are the numbers I'm gonna plug into that resolution.
That'd be correct.
Okay.
And I'll second that motion.
Motion by Bailey, second by Yuri.
That was a painful motion.
You did a good job. though.
So just to restate it,
Painful. It should be
Gonna-
painful.
the resolution is to approve a certified tax rate of 0.000941, which will generate $875,638 in tax revenue. It will be a 4.97% increase. Okay. I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay, this will be a roll call. Arrington,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Yuri,
Yes.
Marriott,
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Sorry, right, and I don't get a vote, so unless one of you want to leave. All right, motion carries.
And
Thank
Mayor,
you.
I will post this slide deck on the website, and I apologize, to council members. I tried to send it out to you all earlier and had hiccup with the
Yeah,
email.
would we post what we decided here tonight that on the 4.97%, and then people can, I don't know how clear my instructions were in the newsletter about going to the county's website. You can find all the history, all your values, all your taxable values, everything on that website that the county has, and you can apply that 0.000941 against your taxable value for this year to figure out exactly what that means to you.
For the city's rate.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's all
For
the
the
other ones
cities.
too.
Yeah. Go back.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Put that.
Yeah,
Put it in, like-
absolutely. I know. This breaks it down a lot easier, honestly. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, that does.
Absolutely. It totally breaks it down. I know.
Good
Sorry,
point.
it's very complex. Thank you all for being patient, sitting through all of this because it's super technical.
807. All the total. Okay.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Yes, very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
We always will let you do what's right.
Dan, you're awesome. Dan.
I don't know what's going on with the camera. The sound working, the cameras won't work. No, I don't think it's. Because it's what feed it was pulling in. Sorry, do not blame it on yourself.
First and second, first and third Thursday.
Good, how are you? I love it.
Two nights a month.
I would be honored. Like I was honored to sit out there and watch this happen. I was willing to go.
Well, we want to do what, I mean, I didn't say this, but again, because what we did, we don't have to address them. That's kind of been the goal.
I try to make, I'm making sure. And they-
Our wants, this is our needs. We gotta tweak it each year.
Well, when you put all this together tonight, generally what I've done in the past is I sit and I wait
Very much so.
in
Thank
the
you.
audience until everybody has said something, and I try to be the last one up, not to be.
Thanks, Amy.
Hey, I appreciate your input tonight. You bet. Everything was well covered tonight. It was a group brought it together, and then you guys brought it together. So
Yeah, have Sarah.
Somebody named Jill. Jill's our client. She'll be contacting you. Yeah. I don't know if I have it. Why don't you give it to me?
It's Dan Crandell.
Yes, you are.
LL, not the DALL. 385. 5 area. 422.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to participate in that. The little bit of input that you and Sarah gave me at our meeting a couple weeks ago. The ponies on the wagon pulling it. Got my excitement, you really did.
Good.
You know, I need to meet you. I'm Dan Crandell over on Evergreen. I'm good. Nice to meet you too. Good night. Pardon me? It's nice to meet you. We've been here about 4 years. About 4 years ago. I love it. Your police officers, our police, they're superb. Our police officers, they're superb. I've met a few of them at their locations where I'll pull over and I'll say hi. And yeah, so I appreciate you very much. Say again, I'm sorry. You bet.
Operated on Monday.
I've heard from 2 different people about the officers. They always have scowls on their faces. When they drive by.
My brother
And they're not- Turn the frown upside down. But I've had 2 people say that.
Yeah, it is. It's always hard, but this one got away from us a little initially. Get back in this
Go away or something, you know, when you go by.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I usually try to wave, especially if I know.
Thank you so much.
But I've had 2 people in the last probably 3 weeks. Say, why are the police officers so honored? Like, just say that people are noticing. They don't have to be cheery and waving as they go by.
I was a police chief in Huntsville now. There, we're so small. I mean, you look today.
Well,
You
even.
know that.
But that goes. No, I'm just saying. No, you don't have to do anything.
Hey, that's all it takes to keep you guys happy.
Well, I mean, just. You may not be happy all. Maybe they are sad all the time. Okay.
And probably.
That's big ego. It's cool.
Oh, good. We came to be supportive. Some Nigerian war goes. Borrow Slim Jim.
Said before, I wish I could have closed the gates after I was there, but they keep building.
Twice a year.
Yeah, and then we'll have
Well, I tell.
Oh. What commercial is gonna come up? I don't, I'll fight you. I'll fight you. We've had the discussion. There's places all over, Tony, that we need to.
Appreciate your comments. Okay.
And you take that, and you spend on the entire city, that's just my point. Even though you let them in on site, it's weird.